And so let's talk finals. Game 3, Heat smacked fire out of those Nuggets, man. Gave them a rude awakening after Game 2, winning by 3 points, 111 to 108. The Heat, once again, their role players stepping it up, man, just getting contributions across the board from Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus clapping back, Jimmy having his moments, Bam being great. And for the Nuggets, some soul searching as they head into Miami tonight to try to take a 2-1 lead in the series, man. Let's look at it let's start with Denver, man. Like where do you see them needing to adjust to get back into this thing?
What they need to do is figure out how to get all their role players back open so that Jokic can find them and make life easy for the rest of the team, right?
Yeah.
We know he can drop 41 points. We saw that in Game 2. But I think you're going to need some more off-ball movement from these guys, a lot more cutting, just cutting baseline, attacking the rim. Just ways to get them more involved early so that way they can get into rhythm, and then it opens things up for not only Jokic, but Murray as well. I think that's number one. Number two, defensively, I think they just got to stay home on everybody, man. You can't really, I know everyone's thinking about just watch out for Jimmy. Jimmy hasn't been the Jimmy that we're seeing at the level from Milwaukee. So offensively, I think you could just stay home, like what we didn't see when we were covering the Knicks, but I think you got to stay home on everybody just because if you're going to have guys like Gabe Vincent, you're going to have Duncan Robinson shooting well. You can't allow those guys to get into rhythm. You got to force everything for what the Heat did to Denver, make Jokic the sole option. They're going to have to do the same thing for Jimmy.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it starts definitely on the defensive end. I thought they got, despite the fact that a lot was made of the whole Jokic not being a facilitator as much as and made him a scorer, I thought they did get enough offense. The Game 2, to me, was their defensive lapses, both on the effort side, when you look at guys like a Michael Porter, and also just uncharacteristically boneheaded plays from guys like a KCP. They weren't connected on those Heat pick and rolls, and the Heat were slicing them up and getting wide open threes off of that. So they've got to stay more connected defensively, communicate a little bit better, find ways to communicate, because one of the things Michael Porter Jr. was saying was that every time they did call out, whether to switch or not to switch, Miami was running a counter. And so and so that's that cat and mouse chess game that's very interesting out there on the court that we don't necessarily see until we hear from those players. So I thought that was interesting insight from Porter Jr., just how difficult it was to execute defensively against the Heat because they kept countering every time the Nuggets were making their move. And that's what we saw out there on the tape. So they've got to do a better job of trying to disrupt this Heat team from three because, that's really what's been carrying this Heat team, man. Their prowess from downtown is really what's allowed them to hang tight in these games and ultimately win a lot of these games. Outside of the Knicks series, from the Bucks series, the Celtics series, and now the Denver series, they're over 40% from three. They only shot 32% or something like that against the Knicks, but they were able to win because the Knicks were even worse from three. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They didn't need to be necessarily a high octane offense because the Knicks were struggling offensively themselves. But against Milwaukee, where they needed to, because of Milwaukee's advantages, Boston's advantages, especially their advantages from three, and Denver being a high octane offense themselves, Miami needs that 3-point pace to stay in it. But for Denver, they're going to have to try to limit that. They're going to have to try to limit them from three. Offensively, their ball movement has to be better. Their ball movement and body movement definitely has to be better. It just wasn't there in Game 2, especially when Jokic was making his moves. You saw a lot of ball watching, a lot of standing around. Those guys themselves admitted that they need to get back active on the offensive end. Murray had said that in his post-game press conferences. I think KCP as well. So they've got to continue to move the ball. And then I think, as you said, from a supporting cast standpoint, I look at not squarely because everybody's involved, but Michael Porter Jr. I think Porter Jr. has to come alive again and be that true tertiary option, that outlet for Jokic, that outlet for Murray, in order for them to be effective. KCP as well. And one of the interesting things was that we hear this a lot from coaches and players, and even Barkley had mentioned it on the TNT broadcast after Game 2, was that it seemed like at times, especially with the role players, that their offensive inefficiency led to their lapses on the defense, and they look at Michael Porter Jr. in that regard. And it's just interesting that we always hear that from coaches and some players, that kind of that psychology of the game where if your shots aren't falling, it affects you on the defensive end. So let's see if that's a trend going into game 3, or if they're able to correct that going into this one.
Yeah, and I think, if you're trying to get into the mind of like a player, it's that this game is predicated on scoring, right? Like defense is part of the game, but the whole point is how can you outscore the other opponent, right? Who has the most points to finish the game? And for a guy like Michael Porter Jr., who's an offensively gifted talent, right? If that's his game and his game is not coming to fruition as he's so used to seeing, whether it's throughout his college career and so forth, yeah, I can see why he's struggling on the defensive end. But sticking with what the Nuggets need to do, man, like we've seen Michael Porter Jr. be that guy who can cut off ball, he can knock down threes, he can even be at times for a part. I think it was like 2 seasons ago when he was coming off the bench, coming back from an injury. He could be that type of guy who can score, create for himself. And I think for the Nuggets, they may have to give him a little bit more leeway, even with the second unit, just to get him into rhythm if you're looking for him to be that guy. Sometimes players just need a little bit more of a runway to feel like they're being utilized properly, get into a rhythm. We've seen that whether we cover the Knicks, whether it's like RJ running with the second unit just to get him going, right? And I think for Michael Porter Jr., we've seen a lot of Murray and Jokic being those catalysts for the second unit, and sometimes Porter Jr. is off on the bench waiting to come back in. And you see like what we saw was we got Brown, Murray, KCP, and Gordon out there. I think Malone might have to give MPJ that little bit of leeway to give him that confidence in order for him to be that contributor that we're so used to him being throughout the regular season. Otherwise, if he's going to struggle like this, it's going to be a long series for the Denver Nuggets because you can't just rely on 2 guys, as we talked about. And you definitely got to figure out how to get KCP involved because you need that 3-point shooting to open up for everyone else. Gordon's a guy who likes to cut. Michael Porter Jr. could be a shooter, but he's also a guy who can drive and finish around the rim as well. Jokic, we already know where he likes to operate. Jamal Murray, 3-level threat. But when you get someone like KCP knocking down threes, he's been shooting close to 40%. I believe he's actually shooting 40% this postseason. You need that to continue. And he's a high volume efficiency scorer. We saw what he did against the Los Angeles Lakers. He's another key component to what they do. So you're going to need MPJ to get into that offensive groove that we're used to him seeing. And for KCP, he needs to start knocking down threes. You can't have him go 1 for 3 as they did in game 2 because now you're just shrinking the court, right? Now you're giving now you're playing to Miami's hands where, all right, if we just have to focus in on Jokic and everyone trying to attack the paint, we know how successful Miami can be at that, especially when they go to their zone, whether it's a 2-2-1, a 2-3 zone. You see how they can just stop everybody and force them to make difficult shots. They got to figure out how to knock down threes to open it back up and to force Miami to do something else other than the zone.
Yeah, true indeed, man. In this game, Caldwell Pope 1 for 3, Michael Porter Jr. 1 for 6. So yeah, 2 for 9 from 2 of your better 3-point shooters. Bruce Brown also a capable 3-point shooter, only 1 for 3 in this one. Jamal Murray 3 for 8. So they certainly will need a little bit more there from their supporting cast. And for Porter Jr., 6 boards in this game. He's a guy, he's a high rebound guy. He should be able to get that up. He's got to get a little bit more aggressive out there. And also, the Jamal Murray, Jimmy Butler switch that Eric Spoelstra deployed in game 2 seemed to have a positive impact for Miami. That could be. I mean, it's only game 3 coming up, but I want to see that matchup tonight to see how. If Spoelstra goes that route again, I would have to think you would go with the same lineup. Kevin Love starting, him being on Gordon. Then you have Butler on Murray. And then I want to see how Denver counters that. Do they run more actions for Jamal Murray? Do they run Jimmy Butler through some more actions to either try to get him tired or to get Jamal Murray off of him? Or to get him off of Jamal Murray, rather, so that you could try to get maybe him back on a Gabe Vincent or Gabe Vincent back on a Murray or, one of the Heat's lesser defenders. It's going to be interesting to see because, and then the counter to that is because you have Bam on Jokic, if you got Jimmy on Murray, you can't even run a 1-5 pick and roll as much because then you get Bam out there on Murray and a good defender in his own right on the switches and in the pick and roll. I think that whole matchup is going to be fascinating to watch, especially in game 3.
it's interesting, man, because we talked about it, especially on the last show with Chuck D. Shout out to the Rhyme Animal, Chuck D. Where you see, what was it? You see how Miami's able to go and utilize their depth, right? Whether it's Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, like they have multiple ball handlers out there. And I know you have Jokic, you have Murray. Those are your top two guys who initiate the offense. But I'm wondering if you're Mike Malone, do you go to someone like Reggie Jackson, who's known to be like lightning in a bottle at times, to figure out, okay, if we're going to see Butler on Murray, do we need to get another ball handler out there that can score? And I know Reggie's been up and down this season, but
Yeah.
maybe this is the time where you start saying, we got to be a little bit creative. We're going with Bruce Brown, another guy who can do a little bit. He can do a little bit of initiating, not a lot, but maybe you go to someone like Reggie. That's why you traded for him. That's what you got from the Clippers. Maybe you go back to your bench and say, all right, Reggie, let's see what we can get from you today. Because if you're getting this from Kyle Lowry, right, off the bench, not saying that Reggie's going to match the same thing, but you're going to have to fight fire with fire and say, we need to figure out a way to get Jamal Murray open. Maybe you move him a little bit off guard, force Reggie to be a little bit of that creator for a little bit and see what happens. Just got to experiment, man.
Yeah.
This is what the Warriors did when they played Cleveland the first time in the series. Draymond, after David Lee went down, Draymond took that role. You get David Lee coming back in, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. We got a guy who can score and facilitate a little bit better because David Lee, much better scorer than Draymond. Sometimes you got to look to somebody who offers a different dimension that you don't have. So I know Malone wants to stick to 7 to 8 guys on this roster. Maybe you got to go to 9 a little bit. Maybe you got to see an experiment during the playoffs. You're fighting for your lives here. I know it's game 3. I know it seems a little crazy to be saying you're fighting for your lives, but look, Miami's using their depth. You got to see if you can go to yours as well and keep them on their toes.
Yeah, true indeed, man. Salute to everybody in the chat. Once again, hit that thumbs up button for you boys. The NBA report live and direct on this matinee Wednesday afternoon. CP the franchise, Alex Shotaro. Salute to everybody watching on the NBA report side. We got JJ from Brooklyn in here. King Cantona 14. We got Gotcha Open Gamba in here. Salute. Who else? We got Dirty Money G5 says, respect what y'all doing. Let's get this money. Let's go. And for those of you that are watching on the Knicks Fan TV side, I just dropped the link to the NBA report. Come over to the NBA report right now. And subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, hit that share button. Obviously, we're trying to get it out the mud. So we're trying to get our Knicks Fan TV supporters over on this side so we could get some momentum on the show, man. But great show so far. We are previewing the Game 3 of the Heat versus Nuggets NBA Finals. And, in this matchup, we talked about Miami's three-point prowess, Jimmy Butler. It's just so interesting just how they've gotten here on the strength of the three. Outside of, that 56-point game against the Bucks, like after that game 1 against the Knicks, he's been good. Right? Put some respect on his name. We're going to put some respect on his name. He's been good, but it hasn't been, everybody's waiting on that playoff Jimmy. But he's just been trusting his teammates, taking what the defense gives him. He'll assert himself when he needs to, not forcing the issue, and he's sticking true to that. Give him a lot of credit. I mean, he's averaging 17 points per game in this series, but only on close to 40% shooting from the field. Hasn't been anything great, but it's been Gabe Vincent could be the MVP of this thing if Miami wins the chip. Think about that. It's been Gabe Vincent. Strus has had his moments. Duncan Robinson has been killing it. Bam has been playing on a consistent level for the most part, especially in this series. So far in 2 games, I think he's been great, especially offensively for them. So it's just interesting to see, if their threes don't fall in this game or in this series, again, that balance. Will we see him assert himself a little bit more? Because if they're not hitting their threes, he can't. You can't have these 14-point games, these 17-point games, if your supporting cast isn't coming through.
Yeah. And for Jimmy, right, like, it's just interesting how this whole playoff Jimmy mantra has been going on, and we haven't really seen that. And I don't know if it's maybe it's the ankle injury, although I won't say that from what against the Knicks, because he did show up against Boston. All right, he did drop 30. When needed. I feel like Jimmy has just been conserving himself for when it's needed most, because he's getting the support that he needs from everybody else. And I think he looks as like, even when people talk about LeBron, who is constantly known for making the right basketball play, but not necessarily being that killer that we saw in like Kobe or MJ, right?
Yeah.
When you watch Jimmy, it's like if he's watching Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson all getting into rhythm, I think his thought process is, why would I want to impact that when I need the support of them to win anyway? He's like, I think his mindset is, I can't win by myself. My teammates have to play well too. So if it requires me to take less shots so that way they can get into rhythm, and you have to honor everybody instead of just honing in on me and then the rest of his teammates trying to figure out how to get their shots, I think he's going to live with that. And I think he's more happy with, hey, I'll get 23 points. I'll get you the rebounds. I'll get you the assists. I'll be that guy instead, just a facilitator and playmaker when needed, instead of having to have that command where I'm going to take over. Just watch me. I'm going to, beat everybody by myself, because we've seen that's not how you really win championships. It's got to be a complete team effort. So I think even though we kind of as like NBA fans want to see that, I think for him mentally, it's like, I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to play to let's have a good, solid team effort overall.
And it's been working. Right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, man. It's been working. And the way that they've been getting that supporting cast involved and all those guys stepping up, it's a very interesting storyline when you see that, you could, if this team wins it, it could truly be like a number of factors. Coaching being at the top, Spoelstra being at the top. Then maybe the role players. You could have a Vincent winning the MVP, and then it's almost like Jimmy Butler is kind of like that third component. So it's very interesting, man. We haven't seen that in a long time, in a really long time.
For sure. And Spoelstra, I think at the end of next season, up for a contract extension.
Yeah, they're saying 20
projecting
mil.
20 million.
20 mil. 20 mil. Back up the Brinks truck. Wow.
And for a guy who's never won Coach of the Year, right? And he did this with Miami with Jimmy Butler, not once but twice, taking them to the finals.
Yeah.
Right. This is where I kind of side tangent. This is kind of where I look at awards and I'm like, like who gets it? Who gets it? I treat it as like it's good for personal recognition, but it's not the end all be all, because you look at someone like let's just go to Tibbs, right? Just because we cover the Knicks. Like he's gotten Coach of the Year twice.
Right.
And deservingly so, right? From what he's done with the Bulls and what he's done with the Knicks. But then when you look at someone like Spoelstra and you look at this team, and you're like, wow, you got Caleb Martin playing above his pay grade. The Charlotte Hornets, let him go. And you're like, this guy?
Yeah.
This guy, like, and you think about all the scouts that have overlooked him, right? Phone call away, we keep saying. You got to give that to coaching too, for him to buy in and to appreciate and to accept that role.
Yeah. I think the coaching awards, obviously it's a regular season award, but so much changes in the regular season. You have some teams, like think about the championship teams that come back into a regular season. Are they really going at that level? Are they coasting? Are they doing load management? I mean, this Heat team even admitted, Jimmy Butler even admitted that, they weren't really going through the regular season at a intense pace, like as you would think a Tibbs team, right? A Tibbs team, every day you're expected, you got to go hard, go in. But for some of those veteran teams, and so I say that to say, the coaching award, it's just about that team that's maybe their improvement year over year, or the team that's playing the best. But as you see in the postseason, it could all change, and Spoelstra right now is showing that he's at the top of the sport, no question about it. Now, Tyler Hero, the story also of Game 3, will not play. Tyler Hero will not play again in this one, man. He's out with he's trying to recover from the hand. According to Eric Spoelstra, he has not yet been cleared, but he is doing some drills. He is participating in team practices. According to Eric Spoelstra, he is he's looking good. They are encouraged. But this was from Roz Gold on Woo Day on Monday, and this was from Game 2, when she spoke to Tyler Hero. She said that he said Hero experiences both soreness and swelling in the right hand after shooting and can feel the soreness when he's making a follow-through shooting motion. He also shared his consideration not wanting to come back and mess up the rhythm of the team. While there was some hope he returned from game 2, as he's participating in all-team practice, he's making sure the time is right to return to the court. It's interesting. It's an interesting dilemma that they have, right? It's 1-1. You're now going into game 3, feeling good about yourselves, feeling like if we play our game, we have a chance. And now you have a scorer on your bench, ice cold, hasn't played competitively in months. Right. Well, he heard it in the Bucks series. So what was that? April? Yeah. Say it was a couple months, 2 months, roughly. Hasn't played in roughly 2 months. Rust, rhythm. How does that all play out? I mean, Brady Hawk of 5 on Sports came on, thought that they would bring Hero off the bench. Mm-hmm. But I'm not so sure that, as this series drags on, I think the chances of him playing become less and less. What do you think?
Mean, if he's not coming back today, I don't see it. There's 2 ways that I'm thinking of this. One, I think Spoelstra's so confident in this group based on how far they've come without him that he's saying, all right, we're in these games. We're, losing game 1. All right, we were there. We won game 2. Obviously, we're there. We probably don't need Hero right now. No need to rush him back and to potentially throw off the rhythm. So why not just stay with this core group who's been successful and let's keep it rolling. Now, I could see Hero coming back because, you hear this, like saying that he's comfortable and stuff like that. The coach is not going to say he's healthy. We're holding him out because we don't want to ruin the flow. That's like the worst thing you can say. That's the worst thing you could say because then you're saying you don't have confidence in your player who's ready to play, who's been a big part of your success this season, who helped you, right, get you past the play-in. So the team's not going to say anything like that. They're going to make sure that it's like he's working. What does the team doctors think? Maybe even something internally where it's like team doctors, let's just say like we're still trying to do this, still trying to test him out, see how he really feels, but let's be cautious so that way we still have him for the future. And we're not trying to get him ready and get him mentally prepared to come back when we got something cooking right now. So I think that's part of the reason why we're not seeing that. But there's no reason to rush him back. Look, you just won without him. You've been winning without him.
Right.
And I really do believe throwing a player back in at this point, you could throw off the entire rhythm of the team. And I think you got to be careful about that. No matter, like, for Tyler Hero, it's not like we're talking about anyone of like LeBron James's caliber or Dwayne Wade, anything of that nature where you really need him to compete. We're seeing that you don't really need him to compete, which is why on the last show I'm like, what do you do with Tyler Hero this offseason, which, we're going to talk about Dame later in the show.
Yeah.
So I say you still keep him on the sideline until things get to the point where it's like we desperately need him. We need some jolt because there could be a case where Duncan Robinson doesn't shoot well anymore. Caleb Martin is just ineffective, right? Gabe Vincent just loses everything that he's been doing this entire postseason. And then you could say, all right, now we go to now we break the glass in case of emergency. We bring Tyler Hero back in. But as of right now, you just keep it chugging with what you got.
Yeah, that's what I think, man. I agree with you there. So what do you think for tonight, man? Give me your finals prediction, man. What do you think? Miami at homes Wednesday, back in the 305. Haven't been home in quite some time. What do you think, man? What do you guys think in the chat? Give me your game predictions for tonight.
This is tough. I don't know if this is the Knicks fan in me that just doesn't want to see the Heat win.
Heat haters unite. I'm with you, bro. This is a safe space for you, man.
I could see where Miami does win because they have that edge, right? They just won game 2 in Denver.
Yeah.
Denver was undefeated at home this postseason. Miami broke that in game 2. They're home. They got some momentum. I could see them saying, you know what? We're on our home turf now. We're going to show them why you still got to fear us. On the other hand, I can also talk myself into Denver needs to punch back. They need to show some fight. And we can't we can't forget how good this Denver Nuggets team has been, okay? For throughout their entire playoff series. Look, they defeated the Suns with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Sure, watered down team with dealing with some injuries, didn't have Chris Paul, but still the way that they were just able to attack Phoenix in all facets of the game was very impressive because they just looked like a machine. How they were able to compete with the Lakers, who was a really good team after all their midseason acquisitions and changes. But I'm going to go with Denver. I'm going to go with Denver tonight because I think this is going to be a competitive series.
Yeah.
I think Malone, after his last post-game conference, if the team doesn't respond to that for the sense of urgency, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
If they lose tonight, it's hard to have confidence that this team could win the series. They may win another game, but to win the series, you start to lose some confidence.
Yeah, true story. True indeed, man. I'm going with Denver with a bounce back, gut check, gritty win, and this one's on Jamal Murray's hands, man. I can't see him going with another dud of a game. He did finish with 18 points in game 2, but a large part of that was a late quarter flurry. I mean, he had 10 points as that thing went deep into the fourth. He's got to be better. He's got to knock down shots. I thought he got good looks in game 2. He's just got to knock them down. And I also think they've got to free him up a little bit and get Jimmy Butler off of him if that is the same matchup that Spoelstra chooses to go with in game 3. Also, Denver shooting against the Heat zone. We'll see how that does. The Heat did a good job in game 2, especially late in that game, really flustering that Denver offense when they put the zone on them. So I want to see how they counter that. But I think Denver is able to get the job done tonight, man.